girls, here is chapter 16, Onwards and Upwards. Everybody, Fritz, Clara, Walter, Humphrey, Walnut, all the Tea-Town guards and even Queen Victoria Sponge herself took a startled step backwards, gasped and cried, "What?" all at the same time. Princess Ricotta repeated herself, "I think that Papa is planning to kidnap Father Christmas." There was another, even bigger gasp. This really was an outrageous shenanigan. "How?" exclaimed Clara. "And also, why?" Princess Ricotta shook her head. "I'm not sure," she squeaked, "but I know that he and my brothers have been plotting for weeks. All I've heard is them whispering about Father Christmas and rocket drops and a big trap. And whenever they said that, they giggled like this. Tee-hee. When they giggled like that, I know it's time to be very worried indeed." "It is worrying, I agree," cried Walter. "If the Mouse King steals a special rocket drops, the reindeer won't be able to make it all around the world in one night to deliver any presents. If they kidnap Father Christmas, there won't be any presents," cried Fritz, clamping his hands to flee his face in dismay. "Because there won't be any Christmas at all, we have to stop him and save Christmas." Clara looked at her little brother. He was right, they had to go. Not just to save Christmas, but to save Fritz. She noticed that his hands had now changed into little mousy paws. They didn't have much longer at all until he would be completely transformed. "Come on then," she said, pushing her specs up her nose. "Let's go up the mountain." Marshmallow Mountain's pointy peak towered above them. Walter jumped to attention and, only slightly nervously, began to climb the snowy mountainside. "I'm coming with you," said Princess Ricotta, running to join Clara and Fritz. She slipped her little paws into theirs. "And me," said Humphrey Walnut. "And me," boomed Queen Victoria Sponge. "Nobody pilfers my mince pies and gets away with it." "Do we have to come?" asked one of the Tea-Town guards. He looked rather panicked at the thought. Queen Victoria Sponge tutted. "No," she said. "You lot go home and put the kettle on. I'll deal with this. I'll need one of those, though." And she took a teaspoon from one of her guards and swung it experimentally through the air. She nodded approvingly. "Yes, a good wallop of this will put an end to any shenanigans," she said. Then she dismissed the guards, and the adventurers began their trek up Marshmallow Mountain. It was quite a journey. Great craggy lumps of rock cakes had to be scrambled over the snow, was thick was underfoot. It was also very fine and slippery, so they had to be careful. It wasn't until Fritz poked his tongue out to catch some snowflakes that they realised the snow on Marshmallow Mountain wasn't snow at all. It was icing sugar. It was a tasty little surprise on what was proving to be a rather tricky hike. Up and up they went, and soon they found themselves climbing through a thickening forest. The trees, however, were not like the trees in the deep dark woods at all. These ones on Marshmallow Mountain were stripped like candy canes, and dangling from their branches were enormous round sweets, wrapped in sparkling foil wrappers. "Fruit grums," explained Walter. If they'd had more time, and if their mission hadn't been so important, Clara and Fritz would have liked to have tried some of the sweets. They hadn't seen fruit grums that big before. They could have worn the wrappers as capes. Onwards they went, and upwards too, crunching through the sugary snow and the candy cane trees. The kingdom of sweets grew closer and closer, and they were almost upon it when Princess Ricotta suddenly stopped and pulled everyone away from the path to hide behind a tree. She pointed a pair of large ornate gates set into a high wall a little way ahead of them. They all peered around the stripy trunk and discovered that the doors to the kingdom were wide open. "The Mouse King has used the magic key to break the spell," groaned Walter. "We're too late. The kingdom is unprotected." "Don't worry," said Clara, trying to cheer Walter up. "This just makes it easier for us to run in and save the day." But Walter shook his head and pointed again at the gate. As they watched, one of Princess Ricotta's big brothers, Manchego, swaggered out and positioned himself in the doorway. His catapult was loaded with a lump of cheese and his eyes were narrowed. He was glancing about suspiciously, ready to stop anyone else getting into the kingdom and running the Mouse King's shenanigans. "We'll have to get past him first," whispered Ricotta. "But how?" "He might be a dunderhead, but he's a cracking shot with that catapult. All three of them are." There was silence for a minute, whilst everyone thought hard. "Come on," said Clara encouragingly. "There must be a way past Manchego." She tapped her head to get her brain working, but she was distracted by the sound of chewing. "Actually, I must say these are rather good," exclaimed Queen Victoria Sponge. Clara looked over her shoulder to find the Queen of Tea-Town chomping away, holding a foil wrapper in one hand and a well-nibbled giant fruit gum in the other. "Found it on the floor," she explained with her mouth full. "It dropped from a tree. I usually prefer biscuits and cakes, but I have to say this is very tasty." Clara wasn't listening. She was goggling at the foil wrapper in Queen Victoria Sponge's hand. Her brain was whirring as she weighed up an idea that has just sprung into her mind. After a moment, she grinned and snapped her fingers. "Gather round, everyone," she whispered excitedly. "I have an idea for some shenanigans of our own."